Well, all right, we are back. It is week 2, the end of week 1 of the NFL opening kickoff to the season. Jared, good to see you back in Michigan, having some fun watching football this
Great to
weekend.
be back.
Bet, man. I bet.
The sounds of Vegas are now replaced with the sounds of dogs barking and kids running around upstairs. So.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
That's a great thing. It's a great thing.
It's a beautiful thing. Let me pull up my chat here so we can see who's with us so far tonight. All right. So, pretty wild weekend.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I was looking like a genius. Ryan says my volume is low. That's not good. Let me double check that. I was looking like a genius all weekend. Oh, my volume certainly is low. Look at that. And then, the last 4 minutes of the games kicked in, just like it seems like it does every season. And a lot of things happened. A lot of things changed. A lot of losses I collected, including a fantasy football loss because of David Montgomery. So you remember when you said last week I would never take a fantasy win in place of a Lions loss?
That's true.
Well, that's what happened to me.
But that Lions win felt good on Sunday.
Oh, it felt great. It felt great, man.
It was just enough excitement.
Yeah.
Get us a little bit tight, a little bit tense.
I'm actually more concerned about Tampa, but I'm sure we'll talk about that another day. But
yeah, sure.
Tampa's going to be a tough team.
Yeah.
Tough team.
Beat up team though. They're beat up.
They are.
The defense is beat up. So
we're beat up too, man. The injury report came out today, and we're missing quite a few players. And of course, that's kind of like the theme, right? I mean, you're going to have a lot of things tonight that is based around these injury reports and the panic, don't panic, right? Are you panicking after week 1? Are you not panicking? How do you look at it? What changes do you make? I can tell you for myself, I guess when we get to the Rocked On Fantasy League, I'll tell you a little bit about what I did in my own personal league and the other Rocked On Fun League. And we'll see what you think. See what you think about the moves I made. I kind of made them with you in mind, so.
now I'm curious.
We'll see if I read the room correctly. But anyway, so Jared, wild weekend, man, in fantasy football, and NFL was on full display, full tilt mode this weekend. Tight games down to the wire, some complete blowouts like the Saints game. And who was your biggest surprise this weekend? Why? I mean, good. Give me the good or the bad, and maybe one of each here about this weekend's opening the NFL season.
Yeah, I'll start with the bad. How uncomfortable did Kirk Cousins look? Gosh, I guess it didn't even look like the same quarterback. And I was traveling home from Vegas, so I had to kind of go back and watch some of that. And it was just, he did not seem like himself. He was fairly immobile before in the pocket. Now he looks like he's playing with a couple of helmets on his feet. I think there's going to be some concern for the rest of the Falcons offensive players until he gets back. If he gets back, I'm not going to be surprised if Michael Penix is starting before midseason, honestly, with the way he looked. He was a liability. Now, granted, the Pittsburgh pass rush is fierce.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see, but he just did not look comfortable or ready after that off-season ACL surgery.
Well, there's something to be said there, right? I mean, we've seen players like Jameson Williams that comes back from an ACL, and it took him now his 3rd season to finally, start putting it together, right? That's probably not going to be the case for Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's a vet, but having the stability, underneath you, sometimes it takes a few games. It's week 1, right? That's the panic button.
Yeah.
That's the panic
button. It's like things like Aaron Rodgers, like that was his non-plant leg. Yeah. With Cousins, it's his plant leg.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's just no push. There's nothing on it. And so I'm a little concerned with the Kyle Pitts and the Drake Londons and things like that. But he just did not look good. I think what surprised me to the positive, I guess it surprised me. It doesn't surprise me looking back, but it surprised me at the time, is just how effective Jordan Mason was in a plug and play situation with Christian McCaffrey. Right.
Yeah.
This could be trouble for Christian McCaffrey owners, candidly. And we talked about in our fades last week, but we were not high on Christian McCaffrey for this season. Not that he's not super talented. Workload's going to be an issue. He's going to be Christian questionable for the whole year. And he just started like the surprise inactive. And now that Jordan Mason, they've shown he can do it. Like, why are they going to rush him back? Why aren't they going to balance the workload a little bit? I think Christian McCaffrey's coming up on 30. So I see them maybe saving his wear and tear throughout the season. It could be a big headache for CMC owners. But the fact that Jordan Mason plugged right in there, and we'll get into the value of a handcuff and what that is here in a little bit, that was surprising to me, just how seamless that looked.
You just, you just plugged a perfect title for me. Christian McQuestionable.
Christian McQuestionable, man.
I love it.
It's going to happen. He's going to be questionable leading into most games this year. And I think he truly is questionable, but obviously you hear about the 49ers and how they play with their injury tags a little bit. I can't see him not being on an injury report all year. So there's going to be some stressful situations you're going to want to have some backups with.
Well, I mean, you've called it perfectly with the handcuff. Like, that's the first time I've kind of heard that term. I've always kind of been to have a backup for your backup, right? But Mason, I mean, the way he stepped in there, if you handcuffed him behind Christian McCaffrey, I mean, you were good to go this weekend.
Yeah.
If you took the dive, right? If you took the bait and put him in, then yeah, you were doing good.
Yeah, and there's two schools of thought, and we'll touch on it here in a little bit. But there's people who believe in the handcuff. You get a top tier running back, you spend a mid to late round draft pick on his backup. So you have kind of a built-in insurance policy. If that player doesn't play, gets hurt, gets suspended, whatever fill in the blank. And there's some people that don't necessarily abide to that. And they say, I'm just going to take the best one available. And if he gets hurt, I'll just plug in somebody else from some other team.
Right.
And so, I've met people in different circumstances. I think there's a middle ground where when you have a back like McCaffrey, you should be handcuffing him. He's got an injury history. He does take a lot of wear and tear. And in an offense where he were to miss a game, whoever next man up is still going to feast.
Right.
It's not necessarily important to take a handcuff in a situation like the Tennessee Titans, where you've got Tony Pollard as your lead back, but then you got Tajay Spears as your passing down back. Like they're both sort of equal and they're sort of peers. And so then I think you can probably not handcuff, but certain backs like McCaffrey, if you did draft McCaffrey, which we advised not to last week, you're going to want to have a handcuff, especially on a Monday night game, because you got no other options when they play Monday night and they're a surprise inactive. The only person you can swap in is somebody from his own team or the team that they're playing. And so
yeah, I thought that there was some questions on that. As far as that injury designation, but I didn't follow it closely enough. But I thought I heard something pop up that there was concern that maybe the 49ers kind of played hide-the-weenie, if you will, a little bit too long.
They sure did. And it's according to Jordan Mason after the game, they told him he was starting on Friday.
Right.
Well, as of Friday,
Christian was still in.
They weren't ruling Christian McCaffrey out. So it's that's a Kyle Shanahan move. I'd be curious to see what the NFL does about it, but it's something that's always happened, and teams do it to a certain degree in the gamesmanship and trying to find an edge. But it can be maddening for fantasy football owners because you don't always feel like you're getting the right story. You don't know what to believe. And certain coaches, you tend to, like Sean McVay tends to be very straightforward and direct. Like he's going to tell you what's happening, more or less. Kyle Shanahan, not so much. Yeah. We all know where Bill Belichick fell on that as well. So you just don't always know with some coaches.
I think Dan Campbell does a good job of that too. He's always been pretty straight with us about things. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. So that was the bad and the good with week one really in the books. What did we really learn this weekend other than it's week one? I've been stressing it for a while now, whether it's in my traditional shows, that we're going to learn a lot about our Detroit Lions. If you're a Lions fan or whatever team you're rooting for this weekend, you're going to see a lot of things, or this past weekend, you're going to see a lot of things you don't like. You're going to see a lot of things you do like. It's a giant mixed bag. And now you get to kind of dissect it all. You've got a lot of guys that are on the injury reports. But the biggest question is, are they going to last on the injury report till this weekend? How do you get yourself set up for that? So for you, Jared, what did you learn about week one? Is it any different than any other week one of the NFL season and seasons past?
It's a first look. It's a first look. I'll need to address the importance of not overreacting to week one. We put a ton of time into, or many of us put a ton of time into researching and figuring out how we wanted to build and construct our teams based on all the information we had, all the information we read, to some extent the preseason games. We don't want to pivot these opinions based off of the results of what really amounts to a lot of the starters seeing real defenses for the first time all year. Like that, for many and most people on fantasy rosters, was the first meaningful football they have played since last season.
Right.
And so you see people abandoning certain names because they had a bad week and they feel they've lost a step. We don't know anything. We really don't. Kirk Cousins, like I talked about him being the bat, he might come out and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns next week. We just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We need a few weeks. And especially when these players are going into the season, like I said, minimal tape, minimal reps. You've got new head coaches, new coordinators out there, different schemes that everybody's getting used to. Week one really is a wild card, and you want to end up on the good side of it. Sometimes you don't. Like if you look back to week one last year, Deshaun Watson outplayed Joe Burrow. Lamar Jackson threw for 169 yards and a pick, and he was the eventual league MVP. Mac Jones threw for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott, 143 yards and no touchdown. And just don't know how it's going to play out after 1 week. And I think another thing too is when you look at like the tight end market, like outside of Isaiah Likely, there was no standout like tight end play at all. Kelsey's, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, 4 for 45. Like that's not what you draft him for. Like all the top talented tight ends in the drafts didn't produce this week. It does not mean that's how the season's going to go. Right. So stay calm. Don't panic. I play in a lot of tight end premium leagues where a lot of low scores because of that tight end play. And I think overall wide receivers and running backs compared to last year, the production was down there. Like if you look at the top 15 fantasy point scorers from 2023 to 2024, last year, only 2 of them were quarterbacks. This year, 5 of them were. So the quarterbacks are pacing the scoring early on, but it's not necessarily amounting to running backs or wide receivers definitively getting higher performances. So I think there's just a lot of duds in week one. There's a couple of standouts. Joe Mixon comes to mind, J.K. Dobbins and a few others. But like all in all, a lot of the big names just didn't produce in week one.
Man, if I would have put J.K. Dobbins in, and I still don't know why I didn't. If I would have just had Dobbins in, I would have been good. Would have been good this week. But Mark Andrews really, he didn't help me out. Didn't help me out.
No, he didn't. But I think let's look at it too, and I'll get to this in the rundown. But Mark Andrews, everybody's on Isaiah Likely, and that's fine. Like he's a fine pickup for this week. Mark Andrews ran 5 more routes, or it was on the field for 5 more snaps. Ran 3 more routes. Like the way they were bracketing Andrews just wasn't something that lended himself to have a big game. Doesn't mean he's phased out of the offense. I've seen a lot of things on X. It's like, well, he's a left tackle now. He's not a left tackle. Like it's just like relax. It's 1 week. Everybody stay calm. Stay calm.
Yeah. So when you talk about players about panicking and don't panicking, I don't know if you've really touched on all of this yet, but you were talking about Mark Andrews. Is this a panic or not panic kind of a guy?
No, just like I said, like the routes run, the targets, everything was there for Mark Andrews. Sorry, not the targets. The snaps and the routes run were there for Mark Andrews. He just didn't get looks. Isaiah Likely did. And Isaiah Likely would have had even more had his foot been a size 11 instead of a size 12, right? I mean, he almost had that touchdown at the end.
Yeah, but there's some good.
Mark Andrews. Also remember, Mark Andrews is coming off a lot of missed time with a car accident in the preseason, right? He's probably not at full strength just yet. So No,
There,
not
there are
panicking on
so
Mark
many
Andrews.
little nuances that, like you're a premium fantasy footballer, right? I mean, you really get into the weeds with everything. I mean, even knowing that he was in a car accident, how many fantasy football players would have known that information, right? Unless you're a follower of that team, you're into that. Like I'm a Lions fan, so I know just about everything that goes on with the Lions players. But to know that about other teams and players around the league that you're not maybe following closely because it's not your team, I mean that takes a special attention to detail there. Joe Burrow. So there's another report that came out that maybe his wrist is not healed, I guess, or it's not what they thought it was. Are you panicking or not panicking on Joe Burrow?
I'm not panicking on Joe Burrow. If I'm a Bengals fan, I'm panicking on Zach Taylor. Like the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's won one game in the first 2 weeks of the season. Like the Bengals every year are showing up flat the first few weeks of the season. So no, I'm not panicking on Burrow. I mean, yeah, there's some questions about his the health of his hand or his wrist. But I also wasn't drafting Joe Burrow very high. Right. So if something doesn't happen with Joe Burrow, it's not like a season's loss where if you took, a first round pick on a quarterback or something ridiculous like that. So no, I'm not panicking on Joe Burrow. I just, as a Bengals fan, I'd be really frustrated that they can't, get their what in gear for week 1. Like, how can we not be ready for what many felt was going to be the worst team in the league? And so I think it's just more frustrating on the Bengals, not necessarily Joe Burrow.
Right. So, let me throw this over to Lions for just a second. The fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta both were ghosted in this game this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them. Are you in the panic or not panic mode?
No. I mean, I think we did what we had to do down the stretch to win. I think when you get somebody like a Jameson Williams, who's now a threat to take the top off of a defense, that middle and underneath is going to open up. And that's generally where Laporta and Amon-Ra mostly feast. I'm not panicked on either one of the Lions. I think I also feel like at any given play, if Ben Johnson wanted to dial something up, he could get the ball in Amon-Ra's hands if he needed to. I think right towards the end of the game, we kind of got back to what we needed to, especially in overtime, and that's running the ball.
When you watch,
that offensive line and let him push.
Right. That's a great point. And when you watch the trajectory of these teams early on, when we're talking about panicking or not panicking, it's week 1. You get a good look, right? It's the dry run. You're finally getting a chance to see these guys. I mean, you could attest to this, that when you watch, just any football team, their trajectory is just kind of like a stock chart, right? It's just kind of slowly going up. And as you get into that first quarter, the end of the first quarter, if it's not going up, for me, obviously I'm going to start dialing back what I'm looking at. If their stock, ticker's not going straight up by week 4, and you're not seeing a good trajectory of these guys making more plays, more consistent plays, right? The offense is starting to click, defense is starting to click, then there's probably some things to worry about. I mean, that's just for me. Well, obviously we'll hear what you have to say in just a second too, but I'm not going to be panicked about Sam Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Matter of fact, I'm encouraged because now there's more tape on JMO. So now teams are going to look at it and they're going to say, well, wait a second. We can't do that. We can't do what the Rams just tried to do because JMO's going to be left wide open. So now it's like, pick your poison. Which one of the 3 are you going to try to shut down?
And
so
if you try to hit them both, then you don't have enough in the box to stop Montgomery or Gibbs. Like the Lions offense is going to be formidable, and not everybody's going to feast every week. There's just too many mouths to feed. And if the defense starts playing better, then I think you're going to see a lot more running of the ball too.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. Like you see 1 week and you don't really pay much attention. 2 weeks, if we have back-to-back weeks of something like not happening like we thought, it's going to grab our attention. 3 weeks, we're probably concerned. 4 weeks, it's time to go. So like we're really at the very beginning of this. And I think just from what we've seen of the Lions offense, there's not going to be much to be concerned about with Sam or Amon-Ra. In fact, if you're playing the game and you're thinking ahead, you find an owner in your league that owns one of those guys who might be feeling down or thinking they don't have it this year, go trade for him.
Right.
Buy him low.
Especially if you've got someone in front that you can bank on too, right?
Absolutely. Go buy him somewhere. Go trade for him at a lesser value. And then you've got them as they come back to form.
So I assume that you have at least two players. And I know we've probably talked about one already. But who would be your other panic of the week if you were to give a panic button to somebody this week?
I think Amari Cooper right now, I'm a little concerned with. Certainly Deshaun Watson didn't look great, although I'll touch on it in a minute. I don't think he was as bad as everybody thought. But losing the tight end, there's no one else to take the pressure off Amari Cooper. The offensive line for the Cleveland looked pretty bad. Everybody was running for their lives. And he was pretty well blanketed. So if he's going to be kind of the sure bet wide receiver one in this offense, and you don't have a tight end or any other, I'm not going to count Jerry Jeudy as a skilled wideout, he's going to get a lot of attention. And I think that's going to be problematic for Amari Cooper. And I think he's going to have his games, but the one catch or two catches that he had on Sunday, I think there's going to be more of those too, just based on how the Browns are built. So that would be my one semi panic. But even that, like I'm not desperate to get rid of him, but it might be something that I have more longer term concern about.
Okay. Key takeaways from every game in week one. So this is probably a fairly long segment, probably break it down, a couple of teams at a time. But there was a lot of action. There's a lot going on this weekend and a lot not happening, for a lot of players that we expected. My first question is, you saw probably in the new intro, I put up a rookie quarterback in there, Caleb Williams. How shocked were you? This guy couldn't even throw the ball for 100 yards this weekend.
How he didn't throw for 100 yards. They got really no production on the ground, yet they still won.
Defense.
They covered. It's amazing, right? Yeah, the defense played. I don't know how well the defense played, because if you saw that interception from Will Levis, I don't know what defense couldn't have taken that back to the house, right? I think the flip pass that he did, it kind of just threw it right to him, and then a blocked punt, right? So it's hard to say what that defense is. It's hard to say what the Titans are, but Caleb did not do a lot. But if you're a Bears fan, there's a win, and that's really all they really need to see, to have patience with Caleb Williams. But like a lot of these rookie quarterbacks that were playing, Bo Nix, he didn't look very good. First time seeing these defenses. The preseason it's vanilla. It's watered down. This was the first time they started to actually see things live. So again, I'm not panicked on Caleb Williams, but I am surprised that the production was that low.
If that were the Lions and the Bears in week one, I'm sorry, but that would have been a destruction, in my opinion, of the Bears, because you go up against a fairly decent team, a good team, a top 15. I mean, the Titans are supposed to be bottom dwellers of this league this season. You go up against a top 15 team in this league in week, 1, 2, or 3 with that kind of output. That could have been a Saints number 2, type
he's going to find out on Sunday, because the Bears play at Houston. So
that's going to be a good matchup.
Sunday Night Football. So let's see what happens then. Right.
All right. Ravens and Chiefs, talk about an opener for the season here.
Yeah, a lot of excitement. But listen, like I said earlier, don't read too much into the Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely statistics. Andrews, like we talked about, car accident, missed a lot of time in the preseason. He played 6 more snaps, ran 3 more routes. All of these things about him playing tackle and the owners being frustrated. It's 1 week. Right. And the Chiefs did a good job on him. The Chiefs came in planned for him. They weren't planning for Isaiah Likely as much. So I think you're going to see some regression from Likely, and you're going to see Mark Andrews ramp into form here in the next couple of weeks.
So I think the second game that we'll talk about here, kind of in conjunction here, is Packers and Eagles. What stood out for you in this game?
It's the first time we're seeing Saquon Barkley in a literate offense. I mean, just the fact he's got other weapons around him and he's not the one weapon that the Giants had. I think he was the high point scorer for all fantasy in week 1 in a PPR league. He looked great. And I think when you've got the weapons they do on the outside and you've got the quarterback play, the line looked a little rough, just in terms of like, it looked like they were missing Kelsey a little bit. But outside of that, like, I think just Saquon Barkley is going to be, he's going to be something this year. In fact, a lot of the leagues that we drafted in Vegas happened after the Friday game, where you essentially get a free look and then you can still draft those players and get those points. And Saquon Barkley went number 1 overall. So
yeah, if he had 3 touchdowns on the ground this weekend, yeah.
I believe he had 2 on the ground. He might have had 1 more receiving.
Okay. Either way, he looked good.
He looked good.
He looked good behind that line for sure. All right, Steelers and Falcons. We know the steel curtain came to play this weekend.
They did. I got to downgrade every Falcons player on offense.
Wow.
I don't think he should be playing yet, Kirk Cousins. I just don't. The timeline seemed aggressive when he was kind of come back. We didn't see anything from him in the preseason. We didn't hear much from him at practice, taking it easy. He just doesn't look comfortable. I will probably make a sneaky waiver wire pickup on Michael Penix in the next week or 2, and I'm just going to stash him because I think the quarterback in this offense can be very productive. I don't think Kirk Cousins is ready. And he's got a tough matchup coming up with the Eagles, and I can't remember the game after that, but it's not an easy one either. He's got 2 tough ones where he's going to need to show a little bit more, or it could be time to start looking at seeing what Michael Penix has. So I think there's a reason the Falcons didn't play Michael Penix a lot in the preseason. We kind of made jokes because they shut him down, like to keep him safe or all that kind of. I think the Falcons knew that they might need him.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, that'll end up being like the talk of the town, because if you remember during the draft, I mean, that GM was completely lit up by the owner. I can't remember the owner of the Falcons team right now. But he was upset that they just did that. They just traded, and paid all that money for Kirk Cousins, and then they turn around and draft a quarterback. But you know what? That might be the play of the year right there out of this draft if Penix comes in and lights it up. But safe to say, if the Falcons go down 4 games, you're right, man. They could shelve Kirk and put Penix in and say, it's time to get you some snaps.
See what we got. Rest up. Give me another shot next year. I don't know. I'm really curious to see how he looks on Monday night.
Riley O'Brien, how you doing? Hey, and welcome everybody into the chat tonight. We got Lit Lion in the house. We got Paulo Cesario, King SJ, all the way from Toronto. We've got Uper Lights, Eric Rintamaki. Who else is in here? Dave Scott's in the house tonight. There was a bunch more in here. Rendon Dye. I don't know what happened to the chat, but it completely disappeared earlier. Again, I'm not real sure, but I think everybody kind of disappeared with it. Cardinals and Bills. I was expecting a lot out of the Cardinals this weekend. I really was. I'm still sticking by my call here that the Cardinals are going to be the 2024 Texans of 23. I really think that there's a lot to this team that's going to surprise some people this season. But man, the Bills, Allen came to play. What was your thoughts here?
I mean, the big issue with the Cardinals is the defense. Like, I think that between them, the Commanders, and the Giants, like, we're talking really bad defenses right now. I think Josh Allen's the obvious one to praise here. QB1 for good reason. But also want to make sure that people who drafted Dalton Kincaid, like, I think he had a 1 for 11 performance. He started last season. Granted, he was a rookie. He started the same way, and he got in the groove as the season went on. So Allen is the clear QB1 for fantasy because of what he can do with his legs, health permitting, always health permitting. But Dalton Kincaid owners, hold on, it's coming. We'll see how he looks on tomorrow night, because I think he's got the short week with the Bills at the Dolphins tomorrow. But yeah, I think Josh Allen looked great. Dalton Kincaid didn't, but I'm not concerned about Dalton Kincaid. The thing that we also warned about last week was Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
We said, like, and it's not that he's not talented. He's not going to have a great rookie season. He was being drafted as a first overall draft pick. is just too high. It was his ceiling. It's going to take him some time, and I think one catch for 5 yards in week 1. There's more to come from him. There's no doubt, but not really surprised that he's off to a slow start.
So he was one of your fades last week. Did you mention that? Yeah. So he was somebody that you were warning people to kind of just stay away from. Doesn't mean you can't draft the guy, right? But
yeah,
you know,
pay the
just
right price. Pay the right price.
Be careful.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in DFS for people who want to play DFS. Just pay the right price. You know, don't overpay on the buzz, right? Make sure you're getting a good value for what you're drafting.
Well, that was a jackpot call. Good work. Who's up next here? So we're talking Cardinals and Bills. How about the Titans and the Bears?
Tough one. I think if anything, we got our answer to the Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard debate. Pollard's going to be the early down back. He's going to get the carries. I think Spears is going to be the passing down back and on third downs. I think for the Titans, there's going to be a lot of passing downs and a lot of third downs. But both are going to have standalone value every week, but also going to have limited upside. Either one, you can plug and play into like a flex position, which can be a running back, a tight end, or a wide receiver. If you need a body to fill in, they could get you 10 points, but don't lean on them to pull in a 25-point effort. It's probably just not going to happen with the balance that they have.
Do you remember where Caleb was flying early in fantasy draft? Do you know where he was slotted in the hierarchy of quarterbacks? Do you remember?
12 to 14.
Really?
If I'm remembering. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Usually, depending on the structure of the league and the scoring system, you could think of him around the 10th, 12th round.
So 10 to 12th round. So was he was probably on the second wave then of quarterbacks?
I would put him more on the third wave of quarterbacks.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
if you tear it out, you got the Allen, the Jacksons, the Mahomes, and the
Jared Goff.
I don't know about Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is in the same tier as Caleb Williams.
That's terrible.
In terms of where he was being drafted from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
Not who we'd want quarterbacking our team, clearly, but from where he was being drafted as a fan. Because you're drafting again with Caleb Williams, you're drafting the unknown upside. You don't know what he's going to be.
Right.
He could be the way Pat Mahomes was. I guess it was technically a second year because he sat a year. It could have been that. He could be Mark Sanchez. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get with him, right? So people draft on the hope of the upside.
So there was a question in here. When we get to the Commanders, remind me about Ryan's question here on Jaden Daniels. He wants to know if Daniels had a lucky week or is he going to be reliable? So when we get to the Commanders, you can touch on that. Patriots and Bengals. What happened in this game here?
Do we have to talk about this one?
I don't want to because the Patriots really screwed me up.
They sure did. I have multiple survivor leagues that are eliminated. Thankfully, not all of them, but certainly some big ones that how could that have lost, right? And here we are. I talked about it in the beginning. Like, the slow starts for the Bengals just keep happening, and it's baffling to me. Again, I don't want to keep belaboring this, but that Zach Taylor can't get his team ready in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think the standout surprise to me was the efficiency of Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
He carried the load, stayed close to 5 yards a carry. Antonio Gibson, who we thought was going to have a role, caught 0 passes, 2.6 yards per carry. So I think it's clear that Ramondre Stevenson's going to carry this offense. How long he can do it, we'll see. And I think Jacoby Brissett got pretty beat up in this game as well, from the parts that I was watching. So I don't know what to think of this. I really don't. The Patriots put up 16 points, but won a game. I don't know. If you would ask me, could the Bengals put up 16 or 17, I should say, I would have been very confident in that. So I don't know if this is the Patriots or the Bengals, but in any sense, I think Ramondre Stevenson is a good buy for the value that he got in drafts.
I think both teams sucked this weekend, and it was who just sucked one play, less that was going to win.
Yeah, which is it's hard to suck more than what we thought the Patriots were going to suck. And
Yeah.
here we are.
The Patriots and the Titans both. I mean, I called the Titans to beat the Bears, and darn, they almost had it. But the Patriots were another team that I was rolling with. It just was not gonna win this weekend. But
37% of survivor entries were knocked out with the Bengals.
That's crazy. Texans and Colts.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of regret, maybe some FOMO on the Joe Mixon. I was off of him this year. I think due to his age. I generally subscribe to the notion of a skill position player changing teams for the first time late in their career. It never really pans out. I mean, you can look at a lot of different instances. Once they move to that new team, it tends to just be different, right? So I had him and I had Aaron Jones in the same bucket this year. I just stayed away from him. But 159 yards and a touchdown. Do I think it's going to continue all season? I don't. But definitely got my attention, because if he can stay healthy and this offense is what we think it's going to be, there could be more games like this for Joe Mixon. And I'm gonna regret not having paid more attention in the preseason with him.
Yeah, that's a big game, man. No, that's a huge game in week one. But this is kind of what we see too, right? In week one, you're going to have some bangers. Of games that, early, where some of these guys are just having incredible career type games. But to your point, will it continue throughout the rest of the season is unlikely. You're catching everybody at their worst. And, you get into week 3 and 4, and a lot of these teams that were, somewhat good in week 1 have already figured a lot of stuff out, and they're not going to allow it to happen. Jaguars and Dolphins.
Tank Bigsby could be a thing. He outperformed the second round pick in many fantasy drafts on ETN on the ground. Both had the same amount of carries. It's not like the game script was out of hand. Like, they were in the game the whole time with the Dolphins. So the fact that they got the same amount of carries is interesting to me. I think he fell out of favor a lot at the end of last year with the coaching staff. I think he was a little bit beat up. There was a buzz in camp about Tank Bigsby, and I think I can see why that would be the case. I think when you're thinking about waiver wire, I think there's a good chance Tank Bigsby's out there. And if he's getting the same amount of carries as Travis Etienne, it's probably worth a bid or a waiver claim this week on Tank Bigsby.
So Tank was my mid-round pick last in the draft. If they didn't pick up Gibbs or Robinson, which I called the Lions to pick up Gibbs, and if they didn't pick up Gibbs or Robinson, that I thought Tank Bigsby a little bit later in the second, maybe even the third round last year, I think is where I had him slotted. It was my pickup. So
yeah, I think maybe a little concern for ETN. If you're an ETN owner and Bigsby's on the waiver wire, I would be being very aggressive to go get him.
Good call.
I think you just need to be able to give yourself the peace of mind that one of those goes down, you've got the other. And if future weeks are like this week, standalone value for both if you need it.
The absolute craziest game of the weekend. The Saints, man. Where did they come from? Huge game. Completely stomped out the Panthers. The Panthers just have not got anything right in the last few seasons.
Does that remind you of another team?
Yeah. Well, but we made improvements. As much as we failed, we were making improvements. I just don't see anything good out of the Panthers.
Yeah, I can't see how any of the Panthers can be started in a lineup at this point. If we're looking at fantasy, let's put put the game aside. I don't think I would start any of them. I may not even own a lot of them. Maybe the exception of Deontay Johnson or something like that. I think Andy Dalton, much like Michael Penix, is going to be the starting quarterback here before long. And he will be an upgrade, which is amazing to think about. Bryce Young does not seem to have it. He's now in his second offense in as many seasons. I had hope for Dave Canales in this offense. At least I was holding out hope that we'd see something better than that. And again, we don't want to overreact. It's 1 week. This week they have the Chargers at home. Let's give it another week to see if, maybe they got some things ironed out. But right now, the Panthers just look like they're going to be a number 1 pick again.
I the Panthers have the Chargers coming to town. It's going to be another stomping all the way to the woodshed again against the Panthers. I'm telling you right now, they're going to lose by more than 20 this weekend. That's my early call without looking at anything.
Good survivor pick, the Chargers.
They're probably going to lose by 20. The Chargers are going to come in and run the ball all over the place, especially with Charles Harris, former Detroit Lion, playing on the end. Vikings and Giants, interesting game that it was. I don't think that a lot of us, at least for me, I didn't see the Giants playing this bad, but I was very particular when I said that Sam Darnold has a rocket launcher for an arm, and you better not discount this guy. Sam Darnold, I think, surprised quite a few people. Do you feel like this quarterback right now is going to be able to string together a few games for the Vikings? Do you have a longer outlook on him? And is this somebody that maybe you should start looking at seriously to pick up and stash?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think there's a couple things going for Sam Darnold. And you got to strip out what happened in New York. You've got to strip out what happened in Carolina. Think of who was calling his plays back then too. Adam Gase, right? You got to put that aside. He's got talent. He was drafted where he was for a reason. He now has a really good play caller. Kevin O'Connell is a very good play caller, right? He's done a lot. Look what he did last year for a while with Josh Dobbs, for instance. He can make something out of this. And third, he's got Justin Jefferson. He's got what I would say is the best wide receiver in the game all around. No disrespect to one of our own and some others that are up there, but Justin Jefferson is a freakish talent. And when you've got somebody like that on the field, and you've got a play caller putting into the right spots, and you've got a couple other weapons when Hawkinson comes back, and Addison if he stays healthy, and if we get a running game with Aaron Jones, I think people are going to shy away from Sam Darnold both in season long and in DFS because he's Sam Darnold. But there's not really a reason you should necessarily. If you take his stats and you take his situation and put somebody else's name on it, I think people will be more likely to take it.
Got to hit the rewind button for a second. Lit Lion wants to know more about Derek Carr because of the game this weekend with the Saints and the Panthers. What do you think about Derek Carr? You holding, folding? What are you doing with this guy?
You got to hold. I don't know. I don't want to roll him out. I got to see him play somebody other than the Panthers. So I'll be able to tell what's happening with Derek Carr after he plays the Cowboys, where he's going to be forced to score points to keep up, I think. With the Panthers, I don't know that.
Not a good enough test.
I think we could have gotten the listeners here on the squad and come up with 3 points against the Panthers. I don't know what they're doing. It's so hard to tell.
I'll be the water and the towel boy all day.
I'm the kicker. I'll be the kicker. I'll kick the field goal. It's just bad. I don't know. So Derek Carr, we'll see. New offensive coordinator. Okay, so the name's escaping me. Is it Kubiak?
I have no idea.
I can't remember. I'll circle back. There's a new. They got rid of Pete Carmichael, right? So they've got a new offensive coordinator. Who knows, right? Chris Olave is a good weapon. Rashid Shaheed's a burner on the outside. They've got capable running back with Kamara, and if Kendra Miller can get back, Jamal Williams had a touchdown blast from the past. Yeah, I don't know. We need more on Derek Carr to be able to figure this out, in my opinion.
Yeah, see,
definitely don't drop him. Hold on to him in case this is real.
Clint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator.
Clint Kubiak, yep. That's right. That's Gary's son.
That's right. All right, Raiders and Chargers, man. Great game for Harbaugh to get things rolling here.
Yeah, I'm a Spartan fan, so I'm not so I'm not so happy for Jim Harbaugh. But I think we have to talk about J.K. Dobbins. He didn't necessarily look, in my opinion, as sharp as I would have thought. I think he had 2 great highlights, and he had a pretty full box score. So we've got to give him credit for that. I think it's the second most yards he's ever had in his career. But if you take away the 2 long runs against pretty bad run defense, he had 8 carries for 28 yards. If you own him, you should be excited about this. So this is good. This performance was a very good, a higher than expectation performance. But if he's on your waiver wire or you're trying to go all in on him, I temper your expectations. I don't expect this to be a week over week thing. I do expect him to be productive, but I think this was above and beyond what he'll deliver most of the season.
Interesting. So the next game up, game of the week here, we had Broncos and Seahawks. Now, I didn't expect the Seahawks to play as well as they did. Let's talk about it.
One of my biggest preseason future bets was the Seahawks over their win total at 7.5, and for the Seahawks to make the playoffs. So what you're getting with Seattle, in my opinion, is, and I'm not sure if we're watching a bad offense or a vastly improved and dominant Seahawks defense. It's probably a little bit of both. But Mike McDonald, with the talent that they have on defense and that corner with Witherspoon, I think is his name. Like he's fantastic. When you bring in somebody like a Mike McDonald, like this defense is going to be good. They've got weapons on offense. Geno wants to run the ball more. He said he ran one of the end zone for 30 yards or something. So they only held the Broncos to a late game touchdown. I think their yards per play were 3.3 yards, 3.0 yards per pass, which is insanely low. And if Geno Smith starts to run the ball a little bit, keeps the defense honest, like he could be a quarterback to stash as well. It's rare for a quarterback later in his career to want to start to run. But he got that long touchdown run, and if he can give value on his legs, he's worth rostering. And I think this defense is going to be very good in a division overall that's going to be a little bit down from what people are expecting.
Well, we definitely don't need that to happen in what was that, week 4, week 3?
4.
Yeah,
Monday night, week 4.
We can't have that happen. Oh man, Cowboys and Browns. Man, the doo-doo Browns. I don't think they're ever going to get it together, are they?
I said that about us for a long time. I kept hope, but here's an unpopular opinion, or here's an opinion that most people don't agree with, and I just hear me out. Like Deshaun Watson wasn't that bad as everybody's making him out to be right now. Like no need to give up on his big resurgence just yet. So I'm not saying he will, but he lost his starting tight end. The Cowboys completely took out his number one wide out. The running game was non-existent. Their offensive line was awful. He was running for his life. So he scrambled with his legs to keep a couple of plays left. I think he rushed for 40 yards or so. He made plenty of bad passes. And I think, ESPN and the other networks, they're having fun playing some of the bloopers, if you will, of Deshaun Watson, because he's not a very likable figure right now, especially with some of the news potentially coming out this week. But there were some decent plays in there that aren't getting showed.
Back up. What news? What did I miss?
Another lawsuit coming against Deshaun Watson.
Oh, my goodness.
For inappropriate behavior, which they had tried to settle before. It's now coming to light, and there's talk that maybe the Browns could get out of this contract. I'll leave this one alone, but yeah, that sounds like the hey, we need something to happen so we can get out of this contract. So I think there were some decent plays in there. So with again 1 week, let's not panic. I think the Browns overall are going to be fine, but I also think this could be, if you want to play some chess instead of checkers, and you need a quarterback, I don't think it's a bad time to pick up Jameis Winston.
Interesting.
Stash him away.
I like Jameis. Commanders in Bucks. So, we'll go back to that question. Jaden Daniels by Ryan Van Valkenburg. He would also like to know about Tyler Algier. But was this a lucky weekend for Jaden Daniels, or is this, going to be more of the same here in the future? I thought Jaden Daniels was going to be the best quarterback out of this draft. I had him ahead of Caleb Williams. I couldn't stand, so Caleb Williams just rubbed me the wrong way. Talent aside, I thought that Jaden Daniels was going to be the better quarterback this draft. And we'll see where that goes. But what did you think about Jaden and the Commanders and the Bucs game overall?
I think owning Jaden Daniels is going to be a roller coaster for a while. He has the ability to put up video game like numbers with his running ability. The RPOs that they were doing for a while was interesting to see on an NFL field. You don't see it very often, or you haven't in a while. But he needs to protect himself. I think 2 or 3 plays there, his helmet came off. Whether he needs to just tighten up his chin strap or something, I don't know. But like, he's putting himself in some spots where he could find himself getting hurt with because he's got to adjust to the speed. He's got to get down sooner. But you're looking at like the traits of somebody like a Lamar Jackson who can win. He can rush for 100 yards and throw for 300 or both in any given game. The Commanders' defense is awful, so he's not going to be handing the ball off a lot in the second half of many games. So the numbers and the ability is there. My approach to Jaden Daniels, I want to see this for a few more weeks. When I get to week 5 or 6, I'm going to think about flipping him. Getting peak value from him if he continues to play this well, and sort of betting on the fact that he doesn't make it through the season with the way he's playing right now, unless he makes some adjustments. The line for Washington it's middle to bottom third of the league. So like, it's not terrible. It's not great. And if he's going to get beat up and he's going to be dropping back this much because the Commanders are behind, I think getting a few productive weeks out of him, maybe flipping him, especially in like a dynasty league where you could get multiple number 1 picks or something like that. I think it could be something to think about. But overall, like, if you have Jaden Daniels, you've got to be happy with what you saw week 1.
So I was just going to ask you that, what types of leagues does that play fit? I mean, that's a high level play. You're thinking like a GM where, okay, we're going to, let this guy kind of artificially pump up his value, if you will, and then flip him, and try to.
It takes more guts. It takes a lot more guts to do that in just a single season league, a redraft league, because you're counting on him to be able to get through that season, and if he doesn't, like, you're really kind of falling flat, right? Hopefully people who drafted Jaden Daniels, though, didn't draft him in the top half of their draft. They would have gotten middle to the bottom of the draft, hopefully. And Jaden Daniels is one of those quarterbacks, like the other ones that can be, injury prone at times, or the unknowns like a Caleb Williams, where you also got a second capable backup. Much like the Rocked On League that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Jordan Love, if you don't get one of those top tier quarterbacks, it's better to have 2 decent ones. And that's why we doubled up on Jordan Love and then Trevor Lawrence. Same thing if you got Jaden Daniels. That's a high risk, high reward situation. So if you want to hold on to Jaden Daniels, I'd do it. I would just make sure you've got somebody capable that you can plug in second half of the season when you're going down your playoff stretch run and you're not having to rely on the health of Jaden Daniels with the way he's taking hits.
A real quick rewind here. Give your 30-second elevator pitch on Bo Nix.
He's got experience, right? So I think the learning curve is going to be a little bit shorter. He's got a good offensive mind, and he's going to be working with Sean Payton. What Sean Payton likes to do, and what Bo Nix did quite well in college, is quick passes. Like, we're not taking these big drop backs. We're coming back 2-3 step drops. We're getting the ball out quick. I don't know that they got the playmakers in Denver yet that are going to turn, those quick passes into long gains. And so I think the yardage is not going to pile up the way probably it did in the prime of Drew Brees. But I think he's an older quarterback. He has a lot of games and a lot of experience in big games in the SEC and the Pac. I guess it was the Pac-12. So I think he's going to get there. I think he's going to be more of a work in progress. And I don't think that I think the Broncos are playing this the right way, where they're getting him the experience, because it's not something that's going to be new to him, right? He's older. He needs to start to play right away, but it's going to take him a while to adjust.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a bad pickup and a bad flyer. I have him in a couple of dynasty leagues. I'm hoping in a year or two he's really going to start to, especially when they give him some more weapons,
Right?
Outside weapons.
Game of the week, in my opinion, was the Lions and the Rams. I mean, this was an incredible game all the way around. It was a battle. I mean, it was bloody. Lot of ticky tack stuff going on. But you want to talk about a hard fought game? The game that was going anywhere at any second.
You felt it in the stadium too. Like the tension was.
Well, you could cut it, man. Like, and as soon as as soon as Jake Pates kicks that field goal, it's like, okay, all right, we're going to OT.
I haven't talked about this, but this is something I thought about when it happened, and I want to bring something up. So where I sit, I'm sort of near the middle of the field, so I can look either way. And when I saw him kick that ball, of course I'm nervous, right? Because he misses that.
Yeah.
Like
my head was literally between my legs. I was that nervous.
Right? So I'm just watching this intently. When he kicked that ball, like I've never seen a ball take off of somebody's foot like that. I don't know if he kicked a line drive or he put everything he had into it, but there was some pop off his leg that I've seen a lot of field goals in the same stadium, the same seats, but it felt like that had a lot of oomph behind it. So that was one thing I noticed. I don't know what it looked like. I haven't watched the game back on TV yet, but it looked good. It gave me a little bit of confidence.
You know who it reminded me of? And we've been, I mean, I guess I really haven't spoken about this on the podcast. I mean, we've talked about the fact that he has a really good leg. I mean, we've seen it. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy can kick 70-yarders, but you go back and watch the way that Matt Prater kicked extra points.
Yep.
That was some pop.
No doubt.
And that's what it reminded me of now that you say it. I mean, he just has it. He has that. I mean, it's just a smooth trajectory. The way that it's a line drive, but it's not a line drive. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's Jake Bates.
It's not this big arch. Like he just, it looked different. And it's not something I would normally notice unless it was obvious. And it was obvious to me that he had some pop. Like his accuracy, we've got to work, figure that out. But I think unlike any other team, and I'm trying to remember like past teams who might have had this, but both these Lions running backs have standalone value. In fact, I could see merit in playing both of them on the same team in the same week in a pinch. I think Gibbs had over 16 or 17. Monty had over 16. JMO is seemingly arrived. I think he also carries
one week, Jared.
It seemingly has arrived. I'm actually piling it onto the NFC Championship game where he scored a couple touchdowns.
There you go.
But I think he holds starter value heading into week 2. I had Jameson Williams on my bench in most leagues. I had better options. I thought at the time.
Yeah, but where else you had him though? You had Jameson Williams as your tier 2 target of the week last week.
I wanted him on my roster. I didn't start him over people like Amari Cooper, for instance. Wish I would have, but I don't have to fight for Jameson Williams on the waiver wire anywhere. I don't have to worry about trying to find a trade for Jameson Williams. I've got him in a lot of places. He was somebody I was going after. I just wish I would have started him in more places week 1. But now I know what we got.
Again, that's another jackpot call last week. So Jahmyr Gibbs, finished with 17.4 fantasy points in week 1. And I guess to back him up, so David Montgomery.
Probably 16.
Yeah, right.
How about the same? 16 or 17, I'd guess.
David Montgomery, 16.3. So, you're talking 33.5 points between the two of them.
Yeah.
That's not a bad day for 2 running backs.
It's rare you can confidently start potentially 2 running backs on the same team. On the same fantasy team. I'm not advising to do it, but if you've got them both and you need to, you could do it.
You could.
Not sure.
Especially now that you've seen the balance. I mean, they start with Monty. They went like the middle of the game with Gibbs, and then they go back. They went back to Monty to finish out the game. And you know what it really is for me when you have a 1-2 punch like this is you're able to save their legs.
Mm-hmm.
And that is huge for a running back to be able to come in fresh, and you've now got this fresh pop that the defense is not expecting. And we saw exactly why that was so important with Monty in overtime. He was just faster than everybody else out there. Nobody could hang. They were gassed, and he wasn't.
Yeah, and the offensive line too. I think you got to credit the offensive line, but that's why you draft David Montgomery, because you know what he's running behind. It's the league's best offensive line.
Yeah, they were pissed. They I think they had a little conversation after the fourth quarter ended. Like, it's time. Yep. It's time. All right. So, what was your big takeaways from the Lions and the Rams Sunday night epic showdown?
Yeah, I think it's just what we talked about, the standalone value of Gibbs and Monty, and I think the fact that Jameson Williams is now a starting caliber receiver. You've got 5 to 6 Lions offensive skill players that can be in fantasy football lineups any given week. And I think that's probably, I haven't gone through each team, but I think that's probably something that was very apparent in the game on Sunday, is there's just so many ways that they can beat you as long as they don't beat themselves.
So let me play the other side of this, because this is where I would have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just say, I have Monty and Gibbs on my roster, and I have St. Brown and Jameson, right? So I got 4 guys. Not that you should do this, because you probably shouldn't. But it's almost really difficult to figure out who you should start. I mean, yeah, you should probably always start Amon-Ra St. Brown, because, I mean, you just should. But now, if you have somebody like Jameson, how can you tell if they're going to have a good game? Because he can go in either direction, right? If Amon-Ra's clicking and Laporta's clicking, Jamo's not going to be clicking, you know, for the most part.
Let me clarify my statement about having 6 fantasy starters on the Lions. I'm not advocating to have them all the same team. I'm just saying that the Lions have 6 people who could be starters on a fantasy team any given week. The only time you're going to want to stack people up is when we think about DFS, right? Daily fantasy, which we talked about a little bit last week, where you've got to find a way to differentiate. And a lot of people are going to think like what you just did. Like, why would I want them both? It caps the upside that I can have with either. However, you get into a game where you pair up Goff, J-Mo, and St. Brown, and you put them all in there, for instance, and then Goff throws 2 touchdowns to each, you're probably winning a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
So you've got to think about it like in the DFS, that it makes sense to take some of those, I don't want to say off the wall, because I think there's merit to it, but like when you take some of those risks and challenges, I think by and large and season long, if there's not like a bye week, like when the team has the week off and you're struggling to fill up a roster, outside of that, there's not a reason or a desire to probably play both.
Right. I just think it's really difficult to figure out, now that you have all of these weapons, and if they're spread out amongst multiple, teams in a league, it's really difficult to figure out who to start when you have that many playmakers. Like Laporta could go off in any game, and now J-Mo could go off in any game. And the same can be said for Amon-Ra and Gibbs and St. Brown or, Monty. But I mean, it's a great thing for the Lions that they have so many weapons. It's a hard thing, I think, for now league owners to figure out who to play. And that's where you have to really get into the finite. Huh?
What a problem to have.
Yeah, as a team, sure. Yeah, as a fan, I mean, it's great. That's great for us.
Yeah.
And it definitely worked in our favor this weekend because we needed everybody. We needed everybody to do something. So the last game of the week, Jets and 49ers. This was not the outing that they were hoping to see out of Aaron Rodgers on Monday night. But talk about this game, I guess, and where do you go from here with this Jets offense?
Yeah, I think last week we talked about it in our fades as well. With there's a lot of skill and talent on this Jets offense. They just don't move quickly, and they were out of sync big time today, or I guess it was Monday night. Not a lot. The defense, like, where was the Jets defense? Holy crap! Like, what? we were waiting to see this defense get unleashed. I think the key takeaway here is chalk one up for those who believe in the running back handcuff, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Many fantasy football contests were decided this past weekend by CMC owners that did not own Jordan Mason. And
crazy.
had they owned him, they would have been fine. You're stuck when the game's on a Monday night. You got to have a backup in there. If there's a risk of a player not playing, you've got to have somebody you can plug in. And I'm telling you that I did the same thing. I had no thoughts of CMC not playing. I really didn't. One league I had CMC. Thankfully, I had Mike Williams to plug in a flex spot. He didn't do me any good though either. And I think it just took your eye off the ball with that one. I sort of sacrificed the league because I wasn't thinking about having someone like a Jordan Mason there. So
you even called it though. I mean, you called Aaron Rodgers to have a slow start. Always has a slow pace.
Yeah.
You called Christian McCaffrey, to have some age and wear and tear issues throughout the season. Travis Kelce, same thing, age, wear and tear, didn't have a good week.
Nah, really.
Marvin Harrison, just too high of a draft spot here. Where was the upside? You called all those on the fades. A few other ones you hit on. You hit on targets, Jordan Mason. You hit on Jameson Williams. Rashee Rice had a great opening game.
Yes, he did.
How about Justin Jefferson? Overall, he had a fairly decent game, right?
Yeah, 5 for 7 to get a touchdown or something like that. I think he put up 16, 17 points.
Yeah, so not a bad weekend. What about Bijan?
Very average. But I think it also goes back to what we were talking about with Kirk Cousins. If you don't have an effective quarterback, the play action is not going to work very well. People can key in. That's all the position players for the Falcons right now are sort of like in yellow category. We just got to see more from Kirk Cousins, but it's not something that I've lost any faith in Bijan Robinson though. Like he'll get it. He'll get it back, but I think it was just a poor showing all around for Atlanta. You
can't cancel a season on one game, but man, you're batting, like 900 right now. You're hitting it out of the park.
All right. We'll see.
All right. Yeah. Brockton Cancer Foundation, our league. How did we do this week? I know it was a tough week for a few of these games. Where are we at? Yeah. What are we doing for week 2?
Tough first week. So Jordan Love's our quarterback. He played most of the game, so not a big deal. But we're gonna have to get scrappy in terms of backup quarterbacks. We got Trevor Lawrence. We'll plug in this week. The good, Jameson Williams, Brian Robinson. Those are some of the good that we had. The bad, we talked about Dalton Kincaid, 1 for 11. Didn't see that coming. And also Terry McLaurin did not show up for us with the Commanders in that offense. The other one that I have in bad, just because it wasn't that he had a bad game. He scored a touchdown, but he performed below what I would have as expectations was Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I think he had 10.5 points or something like that.
Yeah, but what an exciting game that really was, for the Ravens when you were watching Lamar and Derek work in the back. I mean, it was
that's fun.
You just don't know what's going to happen.
I think we're going to be just fine there. What am I panicked about? Absolutely nothing.
Good.
I mean, nothing. We've still, I feel, we've got a strong team. I'm going to make some waiver claims this week on
so the one guy that I said that I absolutely dislike, you're picking up Kobe Parkinson. I did not like this, but I understand why. Why. And I want to ask you something. So in my fantasy league, I put in a couple of waiver claims this morning. Last night, I can't believe somebody didn't pick up these guys. So I picked up, believe it or not, Demarcus Robinson. And I had you in mind because Puka Nacua goes out and Demarcus Robinson actually started to have a pretty good game. And the way that Stafford was playing that game, now he was instructed obviously 2-3 step out. He was getting that ball out fast.
Yeah.
Demarcus Robinson seems to kind of live, eat, and breathe that type of a high, fast-paced offense. I'll be interested to see what Demarcus does. But I also picked up Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans, and I was able to get both of them which one do you think I should put in this week with CJ Stroud, James Conner? I am putting J.K. Dobbins in, A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews, I'm going to leave him in, of course. Cortland Sutton or, Rashid Shaheed at Dallas. I guess that's the question mark, right? What's going to happen? Or Gabe Davis. I'm not real sure who I want to slide in there.
I'm trying to remember, who does Denver have this week?
Denver's going up against Pittsburgh? No.
Yes.
Pittsburgh. Yes, Pittsburgh.
I'd probably wait on Demarcus Robinson. I would probably sit him. I think Tyler Johnson, Whittington. There's a few other people that he could spread around too. I think it also means that they're probably going to try to run the ball a little bit more with Kyron and then get Blake Corum some sort of playing time. I'd probably hold off on DeMarcus. It's good you got him. I'd probably hold off on him. Right now, I'm probably leaning Shaheed. Game script wise, I think there's going to be some points. It's a fast track in Dallas. He's a speed guy. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards Shaheed right now.
Cortland Sutton didn't obviously have a good game, in his first outing here with Knicks, going up against Pittsburgh in this what is a fast-paced defense up front. You think that that's going to get to Knicks enough to where possibly Sutton's not going to be able to be a factor at all?
I think it's possible, and the corners for Pittsburgh aren't bad either.
Right.
When you got an inexperienced quarterback like Bo Nix, I think they're going to go after the quarterback aggressively up front, and I think they're going to play press and then just make Bo Nix make the perfect throw is what I think they're going to do, and I think it's going to be tough for them. If I had to rank them, I would probably put Sutton second and just hope that there's some quick slants or something they can get the ball to him with, or a fade in the end zone. But I would probably go with Shaheed this week against Dallas.
All right, we'll roll it. Yeah, it really sucks about Puka being on IR right now, but is what it is. Last couple of segments here. You want to roll into a review of the daily fantasy and kind of roll that into your lineup for the week, or you take it away for the.
So let's look at what we're going to do with Rock Down this week. We're going to go with Trevor Lawrence. We're going to roll back out Bijan and Derrick Henry. And again, reminder, we're playing half of all winnings are going to go to the Rock Down Cancer Foundation. So there's a lot at stake here. This is one that I've moved to the top of the sorting list on the website, so I can make sure I get to this one first. This is one I really want to make sure we're delivering on. Wide receiver, we're going to go DJ Moore. Some concern. I'm going to hope for a Terry McLaurin bounce back. We're going to go with JMO this week. We're putting him in. JMO. And I think our best option at flex is going to be with Calvin Ridley, who didn't have a bad game at all. I'm hoping Will Levis is going to give us something else. We're going to roll Dalton Kincaid tomorrow night against the Dolphins. So if you're looking for something to root for specifically tomorrow, it's Dalton Kincaid, and it's 1.5 per reception for tight ends. So tight ends can rack up a lot of points in this high stakes Fantasy Pros League. And then defense, we're going to roll out Philadelphia against Kirk Cousins.
All right.
I think we can get to him.
I hope so.
Can get to him. Another thing too, I would want to just put out there, Isaac Guerendo. Many people probably have not heard of Isaac Guerendo.
Nope.
Think about him as somebody to add if you have a deeper league, like 12 to 14 teams. He would be what we would say is third in line in San Francisco. So if you have McCaffrey missing time and they want to save Jordan Mason, you're going to see some run from Isaac Guerendo. So speed guy. He actually plays more than McCaffrey game, where Mason's more of a bruiser. Guerendo's a speed guy, like a Devon Achane type of player. Could be scary in Kyle Shanahan's offense if he sees the field.
Interesting. I'll have to look him up.
And then DFS. So the whole point of DFS and the lineups that I roll out are meant to be, I would call them provocative, right? Because you have to differentiate. You have to find a way, if you're going to win the $1 million in some of these guaranteed prize pools, you can't just run through and have the ones everybody's going to have. You're going to finish middle of the pack. You'll be lucky to win your money back, and you're slowly just going to drain your bankroll. So you have to think about ways to differentiate so you can win. So I want to put that disclaimer out there as I run through this roster. I'm not saying this is an optimal lineup. I'm saying this is where I think we can place strategic bets in the right places to hopefully differentiate and win some money. Okay. So I'm going to roll with Justin Fields at 5,400 on DraftKings. With his legs, the floor of Fields is pretty high, and so is the ceiling. So 5,400 is pretty cheap for a quarterback. So we're going to save some money and go with him. Jordan Mason, it sounds like McCaffrey's not playing again. If not, Jordan Mason's only $5,200. Easy plug and play for DraftKings. If McCaffrey does play, I'll likely pivot to Zach Charbonnet because I think Kenneth Walker will be out going against New England.
Man, I'm glad I handcuffed Charbonnet on my team.
Yes. Or you handcuffed Walker with Charbonnet?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Now here's a couple things where I think we're going to be able to differentiate a little bit. I think there's 2 wide receivers who I'm very high on this year that had very poor week ones. And both of them salary came down a little bit from week 1, and I think it's going to scare some people away. Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to roll them in DFS. So Amon-Ra's coming in at 8,100, McLaurin's at 5,700. Another what I would call contrarian play with Jordan Love hurt, Malik Willis, by all accounts, like I haven't seen him play enough to know, but like it just sounds like he's awful, dreadful. Like they're wondering how he's going to complete a pass. Like I don't know how it could be that bad. Everybody's running away from the Packers. I'm going to slide in Jaden Reed and see what happens. Maybe he gets a short one over the middle that he can take for some yards. I don't need him to have 3 touchdowns. I just need him to outpace his value and have very few other people to have him. So I'm sort of going contrarian with Jaden Reed. Jordan Akins, I'm going to slot in there just to save big money on tight end. He's now going to be the starter in Cleveland with Njoku down. So $3,000 for a tight end that could give me some production. All I need is 18 points from Akins for me to put myself in a position to get 5-6x return on him. I think people are going to avoid the Giants offense with Daniel Jones, but this is a really bad Commanders defense. So I'm going to roll out Malik Neighbors at 5,900. There are going to be some other lineups that I submit where Daniel Jones is my quarterback, and that sounds insane, but you've got to look at what he can do with his legs and how bad this Commanders offense is, how bad the Commanders defense is. He can score some points. So, and I don't care how bad they look. They're scoring points and they're getting yards and making stats. That's all I care about as a fantasy owner. And then lastly, the Seattle Seahawks. We talked about their defense earlier. It's going to continue to get better. New England had a full week to prepare for Cincy. I think Seattle, 2 weeks, sorry. And Seattle is going to present a very different challenge for the Patriots. And I think Mike McDonald is familiar with his time in the AFC with the Ravens. He knows the Patriots. I think the Patriots are in for a long day, so I'm going to roll out Seattle's defense.
Yeah, so guys, remember on this, and ladies, whoever's watching and listening, these types of plays, he's trying to differentiate and give you the options where maybe somebody else is not thinking this way. All it takes is to get, a couple of strikes here, and you set yourself apart. You're able to pull down a win. It's an interesting lineup.
Like this is a $20 entry or $3 entry.
Right.
We're not playing for $100 or a $200 win here. Right. We're playing for a $500,000 or $1 million win here on a $5 or a $20 or a $3 entry.
Hell, there's even some free bets out there. You
can win tickets and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Roll it in some free bets.
You have to take your shot with these. You can't take stock. You've got to almost figure out, and there's a lot of sites out there that'll give you what they project the ownership to be. Like we project this player is going to have 5 to 10% ownership in a DFS lineup. Those are the types of people, or less than 5%, even more, as the people you want to target. You want to find that oddball that's out there. You want to be the guy who was bold enough to play J.K. Dobbins as one of your top running backs.
I still can't believe I didn't do that. You know,
Well,
you know
I
what's
mean,
you know what's crazy though. So, and I guarantee everybody in this chat right now has said this to themselves. They go back and they check the stats at the end of the weekend, and they say, "Who in the hell is this guy? Who is this guy that took this no-name guy that just busted for 26 points to win the league?"
mhm.
It happens every weekend. Some no-name, some crazy-looking fantasy team goes and wins $1 million pot or a $200,000 pot or a $10 pot. It doesn't matter. It was the pot that you were in that you wanted to win,
Yeah.
and it's because you didn't look at the one-offs, the guys that nobody else is looking at. So
Yeah.
it's crazy how
Yeah.
often I tell myself that. Who in the world is this dude? Never heard of him.
Either you've never heard of them or you never would have imagined that that would have been the week that they broke out, right?
Right.
That's where you think about those Jaden Reeds. Nobody wants the Packers wide receivers this week. Nobody, right? I don't want them, but I think if that's a sneaky way to maybe get production because something could happen and they could have a game, that's what I'm looking for. What I can do is if it's easier, we can put like the rankings I have on Twitter, so we don't have to go through
Sure.
this week's rankings. And just in the interest of time, a couple of waiver wire targets I do want to make sure people are out there. These are people who right now in the majority of leagues are owned less than 50% of the time. Okay, so some of these may not be available, some of them might be. I think at quarterback, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Jameis Winston. So Jameis Winston, he's going to throw a lot of picks if he gets playing time, but he's also going to put up a lot of yards and a lot of points. So he's not a bad stash. The running backs, we talked about Jordan Mason. I doubt he's going to be available in a lot of them. Hopefully the McCaffrey owners picked him up before the season started. J.K. Dobbins is still owned in less than 50% of leagues. Bucky Irving for Tampa Bay, very inefficient on Rachaad White last week, and Jalen Wright. So Jalen Wright is this year's version for the Dolphins of like a Devon Achane. Achane was also inactive week 1 of last year, and they launched him in week 2. Jalen Wright is a burner. If anything happens to Mostert or Achane, and this week it could be both. They're both right now on the injury report. Jalen Wright could be somebody to watch explode this week against Buffalo. And at receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, and then that trio of Rams wide receivers, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington. Those are the ones that I would look at from a receiver standpoint. And then defenses, both Indianapolis and Seattle have very good matchups. And just one of those long shots again, if you're in a deeper league, I've talked about Jameis Wilson. I've talked about Michael Penix. Throw Drew Lock in there. I don't see Daniel Jones holding on to this job very long either. And if you get a gunslinger in there with some of the weapons that they've picked up that has a bit more clock speed than Daniel Jones, why fight for him on the waiver wire later? If you've got a spot, stash him. Let's see what happens for the next couple of weeks.
So the one that I really like on the Rams is Jordan Whittington. I mean, he does have the potential to be the next Puka Nacua. They've been talking about him all off season.
Yep.
He is someone to watch out for. And again, if you've got room, I wouldn't mind stashing him, especially given the fact that Puka is down right now. And the Rams are going to be flexible. They're wanting to win their division. So, they've got to be flexible while Puka's gone. So they're going to have to find somebody that can take over, and they're going to continue to plug guys in until it clicks. So
yeah,
I really like Jordan.
That's the key in this game. Like when you want to get out ahead, is you've got to be one step ahead of everybody else, right? Jordan Whittington goes off for 675 and a score this week. You're going to have to fight for him.
Right.
If you've got a spot, put him on there. If he doesn't, nothing happens this week, you can drop him for someone else next week. But keep a rotating spot. Take some chances, because when you hit on that, that's one less person you've got to fight for later.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, again, it's been fun tonight, man. This is the first full kind of run through. Next week, in the third week, it'll be a little bit different yet. We'll get more granular with some things. Jared's going to keep bringing us the goodies. A lot of great nuggets here on Fantasy Football Tonight. Any final words before we sign off?
No, good luck. Don't give up. Don't panic. Relax, right? Even if something doesn't go your way this week, it's still not the end of the world. When we'll start talking about end of the world players, after week 3. So we're not even close to that yet. So be patient, trust your gut, trust your instinct, and good luck.
And always bet wisely. We'll see you guys next week at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. 8 p.m. on Wednesday. You guys have a good night. Take care.